Section 40 Vidura said, worshipped by the good and abandoning pride, that good man who pursueth his objects without outstepping the limits of his power soon succeedeth in winning fame. For they that are good, when gratified with a person, are certainly competent to bestow happiness on him. He that forsaketh of his own accord even a great object, owing to its being fraught with unrighteousness, liveth happily, casting off all woes, like a snake that hath cast off its slough, a victory gained by an untruth, deceitful conduct towards the king, and insincerity of intentions expressed before the preceptor. These three are each equal to the sin of slaying a Brahmana. Excessive envy, death, and boastfulness are the causes of the destruction of prosperity. Carelessness in waiting upon the preceptor, haste, and boastlessness are the three enemies of knowledge. Idleness, inattention, confusion of the intellect, restlessness, gathering for killing time, haughtiness, pride, and covetousness. These seven constitutes, it is said, the faults of students in the pursuit of learning. How can they that desire pleasure have knowledge? Students again engaged in the pursuit of learning cannot have pleasure. Votaries of pleasure must give up knowledge, and votaries of knowledge must give up pleasure. Fire is never gratified with fuel, but can consume any measure thereof. The great ocean is never gratified with the rivers it receives, but can receive any number of them. Death is never gratified even with entire living creatures. A beautiful woman is never gratified with any number of men she may have. O king, hope killeth patience, Yama killeth growth, anger killeth prosperity, miserliness killeth fame, absence of tending killeth cattle. One hungry Brahmana destroyeth a whole kingdom. Let goats, brass, silver, brass, silver, honey, antidotes of poison, birds, Brahmanas worshipped in the Vedas, old relatives, and men of high birth, sunk in poverty, be always present in thy house. O Bharata, Manu had said that ghosts, wool, sandal, lyres, mirrors, honey, clarified butter, iron, copper, conch shells, salagram, the stone image of Vishnu with gold within, and Gorochana should always be kept in one's house for the worship of the gods. Brahmanas and for all those objects are auspicious. O sire, I would impart to thee another sacred lesson, productive of great fruits, and which is the highest of all teachings. This virtue should never be forsaken from desire, fear, or temptation, nay, nor for the sake of life itself. Virtue is everlasting. Pleasure and pain are transitory. Life is indeed everlasting, but its particular phases are transitory. Forsaking those which are transitory, betakes thyself to that which is everlasting, and let contentment be thine, for contentment is the highest of all acquisitions. Behold, illustrious and mighty kings, having ruled lands abounding with wealth and corn, have become the victims of the universal destroyer, leaving behind their kingdoms and vast sources of enjoyment. The son brought up with anxious care, when dead is taken up and carried away by men to the burning ground, which the dishevelled hair, and crying piteously, they then cast the body into the funeral pyre, as if it were a piece of wood. Others enjoy the deceased wealth, while birds and fire feast on these elements of his body. With the two only he goes to the other world, with his merits and his sins, which keep them in company. Throwing away the body, O sire, relatives, friends, and sons retrace their steps, like birds abandoning trees without blossoms and fruits. The person cast into the funeral pyre is followed only by his own acts. Therefore, should men carefully and gradually earn the merit of righteousness in the world above this and also in that below this, There are regions of great gloom and darkness. Know, O king, that those are regions where the senses of men are exceedingly afflicted. O let not any of these places be thine. Carefully listening to these words, if thou canst act according to them, thou wilt obtain great fame in this world of men, and fear will not be thine or hereafter. O Bharata, the soul is spoken of as a river. Religious merit constitutes its sacred baths, truth its water, self-control its banks, kindness its waves. He that is righteous purifieth himself by a bath therein, for the soul is sacred, and the absence of desire is the highest merit. O king, life is a river, whose waters are the five senses, and whose crocodiles and sharks are the desire and anger. Making self-control thy raft, cross thou its eddies, which are represented by repeated births, worshipping and gratifying friends that are eminent in wisdom, virtue, learning, and ears he that asketh their advice about what he should do and should not do is never misled. One should restrain one's lust and stomach by patience, one's hand and feet by one's eyes and ears by one's mind, and one's mind and words by one's acts. That Brahmana who never omitteth to perform his ablutions, who always weareth his sacred thread, who always attendeth to the study of the Vedas, who always avoideth food that is unclean, who telleth the truth and performeth acts in honor of his preceptor, never falleth off from the regions of Brahma, having studied the Vedas, poured libations into fire, performed sacrifices, protected subjects, sanctified his soul by drawing weapons for protecting kine and Brahmanas, and died on the field of battle. The Kshatriya attaineth to heaven, having studied the Vedas, and distributed in proper time his wealth among Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and his own dependents, and inhaled the sanctified smoke of the three kinds of fires. The Vaishya enjoyeth heavenly bliss in the other world, having properly worshipped Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas in due order, and having burnt his sins by gratifying them, and then peacefully casting off his body. The Sudra enjoyeth the bliss of heaven. The duties of the four orders are thus set forth before thee. Listen now to the reason of my speech as I discourse it. Yudhishthira, the son of Pandu, is falling off from the duties of the Kshatriya order. Place him, therefore, O king, in a position to discharge the duties of the king. Dhritarashtra said, It is even so, as thou always teachest me, O amiable man. My heart also inclined to that very much of which thou tellest me. Although, however, I incline in my mind towards the Pandavas, even as thou teachest me to do, yet as soon I come in contact with Duryodhana, it turneth off in a different way. No creature is able to avert fate. Indeed, destiny, I think, is certain to take its course. Individual exertion is futile. Thus he endeth section 40 in the Sainyodyoga Parva of the Udyoga Parva.